Yo, what's going on, guys? If you're just now tuning into the channel for the first time, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and also leave a comment what time it is and where you're watching this video from. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. I used to volunteer for closing shifts because they were easy money. Less customers, less chaos. Just cleaning and counting drawers until it was time to lock up. Most of the time, it was quiet enough that you could just exist on autopilot. I never thought twice about it. That Tuesday night started exactly like other closing shifts I'd worked. It was pretty slow from the beginning. By about 9:30 p.m., the dinner rush had already died down. A few cars had came through the drive-thru, but nothing steady. I was on drive-thru headset, taking orders and handing out food while my coworkers Matt handled fries and restocking. Our shift manager Carla was doing inventory in the office. Nothing unusual happened for the first few hours. No weird customers, no complaints, no strange vibes. Just the normal rhythm of beeping, timers, and the smell of grilled onions hanging in the air. Around 11:45 p.m. the parking lot was almost completely empty. The dining room had closed at 11, so it was just drive-thru until 1 a.m. I remember glancing out at the window thinking how dark everything looked beyond the lights of the building. The restaurant always felt like a glowing island at night, surrounded by the wide stretch of shadow. At 12:07 a.m., a single car pulled into the drive-thru. It wasn't unusual. We'd get random late-night orders all the time. I greeted them through the headset the same way I always did. "Hi, welcome to In-N-Out. What can I get started for you?" There was a pause, not the normal pause where someone's deciding what they want. It was just silence. I thought maybe the headset had cut out. "Hello?" A man's voice came through, low and calm. "What's your name?" It caught me off guard. "Sorry?" "Your name," he repeated. I didn't catch it. We're trained to say our names sometimes when taking orders, but I hadn't that time. I hesitated for half a second and then said it automatically. "It's Tyler." Another pause. "All right, Tyler," he said slowly. "I'll take a number 1. He ordered normally after that. No weird substitutions, no strange questions, just a regular combo. But something about the way he said my name felt deliberate. I brushed it off. When he pulled up to the window, I got my first look at him. Mid-30s maybe. Baseball cap pulled low, clean shaven, not homeless, not sketchy looking. If anything, he looked completely average, the kind of guy you wouldn't remember. He didn't smile when I handed his food. He just stared at me for a second longer than most people do. "Have a good night," I said automatically. "You too, Tyler." He drove off. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. He came back the next night. I was on drive-thru again, same shift, same slow pace. Around 12:15 a.m., I heard a familiar ding in my headset. "Welcome to In-N-Out. I was hoping you'd be here." My stomach tightened before I even processed the voice. It was him. I recognized it instantly. I tried to keep my tone neutral. "What can I get started for you?" Number 1 again, no tomato. He hadn't removed tomato the night before. "All right." Then he added, "You close every Tuesday?" My fingers froze on the register screen. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. Sometimes." He let out a quiet breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "Good." The rest of the interaction was normal on the surface. He paid, he took his food, he drove off. But I watched him in the mirror longer than I needed to. Carla noticed I seemed off. "You good?" she asked. "Yeah, just tired." I didn't tell her. I didn't want to sound dramatic over a regular customer. The third night is when it stopped feeling small. He came through again, this time earlier, around 11:30. When I greeted him, he said my name before I said anything. "Evening, Tyler." I never gave him my schedule. I never told him when I worked, but he kept showing up. He started asking small questions, where I went to school, if I lived nearby, if I liked working here. I answered vaguely, trying not to engage. At the window, he looked past me into the restaurant. "You guys ever leave through the back after closing?" That's the first question that genuinely scared me. "Why?" I asked before I could stop myself. He shrugged slightly. "Just curious. I see the door back there sometimes." I didn't respond. That night when I clocked out at 1:20 a.m., I felt uneasy walking to my car. The lot was mostly empty except for Matt's truck and Carla's sedan. I told myself I was just being paranoid. Then, halfway home, my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it because I was driving, but something made me glance down at the notification. AirTag found moving with you. I actually laughed at first. I don't own an AirTag. I live alone. There was no reason for one to be tracking me, but the notification stayed on my screen. It said the owner could see its location and that it had first been detected near the restaurant. My chest tightened instantly. I didn't panic, not right away. I pulled into a well-lit gas station about a mile ahead and parked near the entrance. My hands were steady, but my heart wasn't. I searched inside the car at first, under the seats, in the cup holders, in the back seat, but nothing. Then I checked my trunk. That's where I found it, wedged into a small compartment where the spare tire sits. It hadn't just fallen in there. It was placed carefully and deliberately. I stood there staring at it longer than I should have. I hadn't opened my trunk at work, which meant it was placed before I left, while my car was in the employee lot. I called the non-emergency police line from the gas station. An officer came out, took the AirTag, asked basic questions. When he asked if I suspected anyone, I hesitated. Then I described the customer. He asked if I had proof it was him. I didn't. All I had was a feeling. I didn't tell my manager the next day. I didn't want to be taken off the schedule or made into a situation. But he didn't show up the next night, or the next. For almost a week, I started to think maybe it was really random. Maybe someone else had put it there. Maybe I had built the whole thing up in my head. Then Friday came, and around midnight, I saw his car parked across the street. Not in the drive-thru, not in the lot, just parked under a broken streetlight facing the building. My stomach dropped so hard I had to grip the counter. He didn't come through the drive-thru. He just sat there for almost about 20 minutes, and Matt had noticed it too. Is that the guy just sitting there? I pretended not to care, probably waiting for someone. But I knew he wasn't, because when we locked the doors at 1 a.m., his headlights turned on. He didn't approach, he didn't drive off, he just waited. Carla left first that night, then Matt. I was the last one walking in my car. And as I stepped into the dark part of the lot near the employee spaces, I heard an engine start. I didn't look. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. I got in my car and locked the doors immediately. I started the engine. My phone buzzed again. Another AirTag notification. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't even check the trunk. I drove straight to the nearest police station instead of home. He followed, about 2 cars back. He wasn't speeding. Not tailgating, but just close enough. When I turned into the station parking lot, he kept driving. He didn't slow down, he didn't even hesitate. He just disappeared down the road. Police checked my car again. This time, they found the second AirTag taped to the rear bumper. Whoever placed it had crouched behind my car, in the employee lot. I quit the next day. I didn't tell my coworkers the full story. I just said I needed a schedule change and never came back. The police never found him. They said without clear footage or a license plate, there wasn't much they could do. It's been months now. I don't work late anymore. I don't park in open lots if I can avoid it. And I check my car every single time before I get in. What bothers me most isn't that he tracked me. It's that he knew exactly when I'd be there. And sometimes, when I drove past that In-N-Out late at night, I still look across the street, half expecting to see the car under the broken streetlight waiting. I don't work at In-N-Out anymore, but when I did, we got used to seeing the same types of people late at night. College kids, delivery drivers, people who just needed somewhere to sit for a while. There was a guy we assumed was homeless. He drove an older white SUV with faded paint and cracked rear lights. It always parked in the far right corner of the lot, away from the drive-thru, not blocking anyone, not even asking for money, just there. At first, we didn't care. He showed up around 10:30 or 11 p.m. in the same exact spot and stayed until after we closed. Sometimes he came inside to buy a small drink or fries. He paid in cash, quiet, and never even caused problems. If anything, he was forgettable. Mid-40s, maybe, short hair, tired eyes, plain clothes. We assumed he was sleeping in his car. And honestly, none of us thought it was our business. For weeks, it was routine. Then one night, something small happened that changed how I saw him. I was wiping tables around 11:15 when I noticed he was inside, sitting in a booth near the window. He wasn't eating, just holding an empty cup. But he wasn't looking at his phone. He was watching the counter. More specifically, he was watching me. Not in an obvious way, just steady. Every time I looked up, his eyes shifted slightly too late. It made my stomach tighten, but I told myself I was being self-conceited. Maybe he was zoning out. Maybe he wasn't even focused on me. When we closed the dining room at 11:30, I told him politely that we're closing inside. He nodded, he stood up, and he threw his cup away. He left without saying a word. It was pretty normal, except he didn't drive away. He moved his SUV closer to the building. He moved near the employee parking spots. That was new. I mentioned it to my coworker Sam. He's probably cold, Sam said. Closer to the building lights, maybe. But that night when I walked to my car after closing, his interior light flickered on as I passed by, like he'd opened the door. I glanced over instinctively. He was sitting upright, watching, not smiling, not waving, just watching. I got in my car quickly and locked my doors. I didn't tell anyone. It felt small. The next few nights, he kept parking closer, always near the employee side, always facing the building. He stopped coming inside altogether, just sat in his SUV, engine off, lights off, and just sitting still. One night, around midnight, I went out to grab something from my car during a slow stretch. His window was slightly rolled down as I walked past. He spoke. "You close every weeknight?" I froze. His voice wasn't aggressive, just casual. "Most nights," I said carefully. He nodded. "Long hours?" I forced a polite smile and kept walking. I could feel his eyes on the back of me the entire time. That was when it shifted from harmless to uncomfortable. I told Sam the next day. "He hasn't done anything," Sam said. "We can't call the cops just because he's weird." He was right. The guy hadn't threatened anyone, hadn't followed anyone, hadn't touched anything. He was just sitting there, and that's what made it hard, because technically, he wasn't doing anything wrong, until the night that my car alarm went off. It was 12:40 a.m. We were finishing up closing tasks when the alarm started blaring outside. Everyone jumped. I recognized the sound instantly. It was my car. I ran to the front window. The parking lot looked empty except for employee cars and his SUV, parked about 2 spaces away from mine. Interior lights were off, no visible movement. I ran outside with Sam. My car lights were flashing, alarms screaming, no broken windows, no visible damage. I hit the key fob to shut it off. That's when I noticed the driver's side door wasn't fully latched. Not wide open, just slightly obscured. I never leave it like that, ever. I looked around, the SUV was silent, dark. Sam whispered, "Call someone." But what would we say? That a guy who sleeps in his car might have opened my door? There were no signs of forced entry, nothing stolen. We went back inside, but my hands were shaking now. He didn't leave after that. He stayed until we closed, like always. The next night, he was back again. Same spot, same stillness. But this time, when I left work, he had started his engine in the moment I stepped outside. I pretended not to notice. I got in my car and locked the doors. I started driving, and when I checked my rearview mirror, he pulled out too. My chest tightened instantly. He wasn't directly behind me. He kept one car between us, but every turn I made, he made one too. I drove past my usual streets, and I kept going. I turned into a grocery store parking lot instead of heading home. He drove past. He didn't slow down, didn't look over, just kept going. But the message was clear. He knew which direction I normally drove. He knew where I usually turned. The next day, I asked my manager to review the footage from the night my alarm went off. The camera showed him parked near my car, but they didn't show him getting out. There was a blind spot between the light pole and the dumpsters, right where my car had been. Technically, nothing on camera showed him touching it. The manager said he wouldn't ban someone without proof, so he kept coming. Every night, and then one evening, something had happened that removed any doubt. I was inside near closing. My co-workers were in the back doing inventory. He hadn't come inside in weeks, but that night, the front door handle rattled, hard. We had already locked the dining room. I walked toward the door cautiously, and there he was, standing inches from the glass, not knocking, just pulling the handle repeatedly. I mouthed, "We're closed." He stopped. He smiled, and it wasn't friendly, just slow. Then he pointed downward. I looked down instinctively at the ground in front of the door. There was a small folded piece of paper. He stepped back, got into his SUV, and drove away. I waited until taillights disappeared before unlocking the door and picking it up. It was a printed photo of me, standing in the parking lot, taken from a distance, probably from inside of a car. The timestamp in the corner showed it was from 2 nights earlier. Below the photo, written in pen, "You should lock your doors." My stomach dropped so violently I thought I was going to throw up. That wasn't speculation anymore. That wasn't coincidence. He had been close enough to photograph me, close enough to open my door, close enough to watch me for weeks. Police were finally called. They actually took it serious this time. By the time officers arrived, he was gone. They checked the lot, the surrounding streets. Nothing. He didn't come back the next night, or the next. It's been months. I don't know if they ever found him. I transferred locations shortly after. What bothers me most isn't the photo. It's that for weeks, we dismissed him, because he hadn't technically done anything. He never yelled, he never chased, he never threatened. He just sat there, watching, and waiting for us to convince ourselves it was harmless. Sometimes the scariest part isn't when someone acts, it's when they don't, because you don't know how long they've been planning. I didn't think much of him the first time I saw him. Late nights at In-N-Out attract all kinds of people. College kids, rideshare drivers, people getting off second shifts. You stop judging after a while. Everyone looks tired. Everyone just wants food and to go home. He didn't stand out at first. It was a Thursday, close to midnight. I was working the drive-thru again. It had been steady but not busy. The kind of pace where you're just tired enough to want the shift to end, but not overwhelmed. His car pulled into the line slowly. Dark gray sedan. Nothing flashy. Clean, tinted windows. "Welcome to In-N-Out. What can I get started for you?" There was a short pause. "Hey," he said casually. "Are you the one who was here last night?" It caught me off guard. "I'm not sure," I said carefully. "We rotate shifts." He let out a quiet laugh. "I think it was you, same voice." That made my stomach tighten a little. He ordered normally. "Number 2, no onions, medium drink." Nothing weird. When he got to the window, I finally saw him clearly. Early 30s, neutral expression, not smiling, not even angry, just studying me in the way that felt slightly too focused. "You were here," he said almost to himself. I handed him his card receipt. "Have a good night." "You too," he said. Then after a second, "What time do you close?" "Drive-thru's open until 1. He nodded slowly, like he was filling that away, and drove off. I didn't think about him again until the next night. He came back around the same time. This time, he didn't ask if I worked the night before. He already knew. "You closing again?" he asked through the speaker. "Yeah," I said automatically. "That's rough," he replied. "Long nights?" At the window, he didn't take his food right away. He looked past me into the restaurant. "You guys ever get weird customers sometimes this late?" I forced a small smile. Sometimes." He nodded like that was interesting. Then he drove off. It wasn't enough to report, not enough to complain about, just slightly uncomfortable. But then he started showing up every night. Not ordering different things, not causing scenes, just consistent. Always between 11:30 and 12:30, always asking small questions. "Is it usually this dead? You live close? Do you feel safe walking out at nights?" The last one stuck with me. Yeah, I said, even though it wasn't really something I thought about before. He tilted his head slightly. "Good." By the 4th night, my coworkers just noticed. That guy's been here a lot, right? Yeah, I admitted. She looked out the window as his car idled at pickup. He's just sitting there, I glanced over. He hadn't driven off yet. He was parked just beyond the exit in space near the side of the building. Just sitting, headlights off, engine running. We watched him for a few seconds. Maybe he's eating, I said. But he wasn't holding food. He was looking at the building, more specifically the employee exit on the side. Just shrugged it off. Creepy, but whatever. He stayed there for almost 15 minutes, then he left. The next night, he didn't come to the drive-thru right away. He parked first, right near the employee exit again. I saw him when I took the trash out at 11:45. His headlights were off, but I could see the silhouette of someone in the driver's seat. My heart had skipped a beat. He wasn't on his phone, he wasn't eating, he was just sitting, watching. I went back inside without acknowledging him. 5 minutes later, he pulled into the drive-thru like nothing unusual. When I greeted him, he said, "You look nervous out there." My stomach dropped. "You walked past my car," he continued casually. "You didn't even look over." I didn't respond. I just asked for his order. At the window, I handed him his food as quickly as possible. "Do you ever leave alone?" he asked quietly. I felt my face go cold. No, I lied. He studied me for a second. "Good," he said again. That word was starting to feel wrong. That night, I asked my manager if I could leave with someone else when we closed. I made it sound like general safety, not specific. He agreed. The next few nights he kept coming, sometimes ordering, sometimes just parking. Once he didn't even come to the drive-thru, he just sat across the lot for nearly half an hour. I started feeling tense before my shift began. I'd scan the lot every time a car pulled in, looking for the gray sedan. Then one night, he wasn't there, and I felt relieved until I was halfway home. My phone buzzed with a notification I had never seen before. AirTag found moving with you. My stomach dropped immediately. It said the owner could see my location. It showed a small moving icon tracking alongside my route, and it said first detected near the restaurant parking lot. I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and locked my doors. My hands were shaking, but my thoughts were clear. He had been parked near the employee exit. My car had been parked there too. I searched inside first. I didn't find anything. Then I checked under the seats. Nothing. Then I crouched behind the rear bumper. That's where I found it. Magnetized underneath the frame, small, white, easy to miss unless you were looking. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't fully inhale. He hadn't just been watching. He'd been close enough to my car to attach something. While I was inside working, I called the police immediately. An officer met me in the parking lot. He removed it, bagged it, and asked questions. "Do you know who might have placed it?" I hesitated. Then I told him about a gray sedan, about the repeated visits, about the questions. "Did you get a plate number?" "No. We don't memorize plates of regular customers." They said they'd increase patrol in the area, but without proof, there wasn't much they could do. I didn't go to work the next day. I told my manager I wasn't feeling well. He sounded irritated, but I didn't care. 2 days later, I went back. I needed the job, and part of me wanted to see if he'd show up again. And like clockwork, he did. As if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't just found a tracker on my car. He ordered normally. When he got to the window, he looked at me for a long moment. "You weren't here yesterday," he said. I didn't answer. He leaned slightly closer to the window. "Did something scare you?" My heart was pounding so loud I thought he could hear it. I forced myself to keep the expression neutral. "Here's your receipt." He didn't take it right away. "You know," he said quietly, "you should really be more aware of your surroundings." That was the moment it stopped feeling subtle. He knew I found it. He drove off slowly, but instead of leaving the lot, he parked near the side again. This time, I watched him, and he watched back. I told my manager everything that night. We reviewed the cameras, but the angle near the employee parking lot spots were partially blocked by light poles. It showed cars coming and going. It showed him parked there, but it didn't show him physically placing anything. Police were called again. They took a report. They tried to track the AirTag serial number. I never heard of what came of it. What I do know is that after that night, he stopped showing up completely. No gray sedan, no late night orders, nothing. Which should have made me feel safe, but it didn't. Because he didn't get caught. He didn't confront me, he just disappeared, like he had decided he pushed far enough or learned enough. I quit 2 weeks later, not dramatically. I just said I needed a different schedule and didn't come back. Even now, months later, I still check my car every time I leave work anywhere. I still scan parking lots for gray sedans, and sometimes, when I'm driving late at night, I wonder if he ever really stopped watching me or if he just got smarter about it.